Well, top of the afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of a Wananyuki Cheese Cafe. So as I keep to say, every time it's sunny, there's always a case of, I don't want to be in the house. I want to be outdoors, wandering the streets, and I made my way back into Montreal. And this is going to be the second episode for this little weekend project I had. Did one yesterday around Old Montreal, doing a supper at Nelson Garden, and etc. And I thought I'd revisit a few other things too with a few oldies, because I had mentioned yesterday that I have fond memories of the old radio station, Oldies 990, mostly because that was something that my dad used to be playing in the car whenever I was driving around as a kid. And I kind of got a theme in mind for that. I feel like going to the past again. And speaking of the past, you probably know this area pretty well. This here is the Eaton Center, but if you're around my age, or if you had a memory of 1999 and beforehand, this whole thing used to be the Eaton's department store. I know this because my grandmother, who came from Poland after the war, yeah, sorry, I got distracted. But my grandmother came here after the war, and eventually she ended up getting a job at the cafeteria over here at Eaton's. And we used to come here after school. This is our idea of coming into town back then. Go here, visit her a little bit, and sometimes go visit her at home after work. Fun stuff. And I think if they're thinking of other memories of this, they used to hold breakfast with Santa on the 9th floor of this building. The 9th floor is the original decor, but apparently it's kind of in a dilapidated state and it's not really maintained pretty well, so hopefully one of these days somebody kind of fixes it up. Hey, what could you do? Can you imagine this? 9 stories of a department store. It's like almost unheard of these days. Whatever the case, we'll continue on with our little nostalgic walk. And before I continue, I suggest that you hit that subscribe button below and put the notifications on, so I'm doing new content, and when you get the notifications, you'll hear that I'm putting together a new video. Now, what distracted me before was the third location of Cafe Olimpico. So I've actually figured out where all of them are. Right here on, well, they call it Robert Brase Street, but I'm always going to know it as University. The other one is around Mile End, close to St. Viateur / Bagel District, and the other one is around, I don't know the street again, but it's like close to St. Vincent and St. Paul, so within the Old Port. Nice stuff. So, I don't think I even explained it properly, but the concept of breakfast with Santa back then, it was really just you're going there with the family, you go sit down for a nice little breakfast / brunch. Eventually Santa had been walking around to try to greet everyone. I found it kind of exciting, but this was like 7-year-old me that got excited over the concept of Santa Claus. It was fun to do though. It's like nice memories of me and my family. Quite a bit of wind around here, so I feel like I'm gonna have to hold my hat like this, or maybe get some super glue to hold it into place. Now, this restaurant I'm around here is a pretty cool spot I used to go to that sadly had closed down. It's the old House of Jazz that's on the corner of Elmer and President Kennedy, and it was a pretty neat spot. You would pay a cover fee here, you'd be able to sit down, grab a drink, and there would always be a live jazz band that's over here. Last time I went, there was like a really good singer. She was able to do some Aretha Franklin, and she was able to belt like no end. I do recall we had a jambalaya as well, so it's another spot that have fond memories of grabbing jambalaya and whatever food. It was pretty neat, and one thing I also love too is a lot of the decor that was on the walls was made up of old instruments that were refurbished into like knickknacks. Oh. It's too bad it closed down. It's like ever since the pandemic happened, it just never recovered and wasn't able to come back. I don't know if it's obvious in the window, but you can kind of get a sense of what the decor would have looked like in here with the painting. Fun times to be there, but kind of wish it could reopen. One of the surefire ways you're going to know it's summer in the city, just to quote that video from last time, is when you get around the Place des Arts area, which is also known as the concert district or the show district, you're going to see that they're setting up all of these stages right here. So 2 of the big ones that are going to be taking place is Les Francopholies towards the end of June, obviously to kind of coincide with Saint Jean Baptiste. And then there's going to be the Montreal Jazz Festival. It happens around the Canada Day, or like more or less. And yeah, so you can sometimes walk around. You're going to have a lot of these shows that you're going to pay for to see indoors, but a lot of the fun is just going around to one stage. You might have a show that's taking place there, finishes up, you walk to another stage outdoors, and someone else is coming. So the free shows are really good and fun. And I actually did have experience working around here too. In the latter years of HMV, one way we tried to get some exposure for the jazz and such was actually setting up a booth over here at the festivals. So we were able to see who was going to be playing, actually get some merchandise to sell, and people were amazed if we actually did some pretty good sales. Fun time, just it's a lot to manage, especially when, let's say you'd be finishing at midnight and getting the hell to the store to be able to get the cash and the merchandise. Actually, no, not the merchandise, but more the cash. Think walk around midnight with a whole bunch of cash, it can be kind of tricky.
Gazing from my window to the streets below, on a freshly fallen silent shroud of snow. I am a rock, I am an island.
And this is one of the stages I was talking about. So again, you come here, you watch one show, it finishes up, you walk to the next stage, see what's going to be playing, and stick around if you love the show. It's a fun way to discover a lot of these newer artists, or obscure ones. Actually, no, even classics, because I think there was one, I want to say it was 2009, where it was Stevie Wonder who opened the festival. So imagine getting to see Stevie Wonder, one of the big legends, for free outdoors. I kind of wish I knew more music back then, because then I probably would have loved to catch that. Huh. Some guy on the soprano saxophone is playing Happy Birthday, and before that he played Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I think I've seen that guy before. One of his major songs he always does is The Sounds of Silence, Simon and Garfunkel.
Restless dreams I walked alone, down the streets of cobblestone.
Nice, they got it. What do they got? Oh, I was kind of hoping this was still here, and it is, so I'm going to give you a brief history lesson. So you probably know the metro station around here that's called Barrie UQAM. UQAM stands for Université de Québec à Montréal, so just the abbreviation for that. But if you've seen any of the old signage from 1967, you probably would see what's called Barrie de Montigny. So why would it have been called de Montigny? Well, here's the thing. Originally, when they designed the original 26 stations, I think it was, the green line, line 1, was going all along de Montigny Street, or de Montigny Boulevard. And that was kind of what it was like, go through the busy street of downtown Montreal. But eventually, de Montigny was renamed to de Maisonneuve. But one cool spot is like around St. Urbain, where I'm located now, and around here, which is supposed to be de Maisonneuve, you can actually see traces of the old de Montigny sign. It's like the only spot around here that does maintain that. Pretty unique. And what struck me about that is that I was walking earlier this week from a lunch, when I did my business lunch, and there was some guy who had, well, I think he designed his own scooter by putting a motor on a bike, and one of the bags he had was the front of the metro that had the sign Barrie de Montigny. So it gave me some flashbacks to this. There you go. Old traces of the old sign right here. Made my way away from Place des Arts, and where did I end up? I guess I could say I'm back on Boulevard Saint-Laurent. There's just something about the street these days in the last few months that just keeps drawing me to it. And oh yeah, I'm getting in front of Cafe Pista once again, so I think I'm gonna get my usual Americano while I'm out and about. Get me some energy. Always nice. Yeah, you'll notice I actually showed some footage of the interior because I realized I passed by here countless times. Wait. Sorry about that, garbage truck is passing by. Don't need to interfere with my pretty voice. Now, I I pass by here countless times on my walks, but I've never actually showed off the interior of it. It's a nice cozy vibe, like old brick walls, lots of plants that are around too, and even some like microbrews and Quebec wines that you can buy. It's all good stuff, and obviously I'm enjoying my Americano. Now, you probably remembered I did describe what an Americano was back when I did my walk around Rosemount and was hanging around the Jean Talon market, but in case you don't want to go back to that video, actually I'll say this, if you want to go back to that video, click on the link on the top right corner and you'll be able to see it again. But just to give you a recap, Americano is a little bit like drip coffee. Thing is that what it is it's really just a shot of espresso and then a little bit of warm water added in to kind of give you the taste of the espresso as opposed to diluting it with a drip coffee. I think I've read a fact that it was done by American soldiers in World War II when they were in Italy, kind of as a way to ration out their coffee. Because I know if you go into Europe, if you're to go get a coffee for yourself, you're most likely going to get an espresso. If you want anything like a drip, you have to specify you want Americano. As for coffee, a shot is what it's going to be. So I think that's where it came from. They take their coffee very seriously out there, you know. And one thing I kind of like about this too is that they supply the beans themselves. That means it gives it probably unique flavor, or I guess they're trying to supply from for fair trade reasons or ethical purposes. So if you're kind of into that stuff, I'd recommend coming over here. You got the Saint Laurent location, you got the location on Masson in Rosemount, the Beaubien location in Rosemount too, and probably one more that I'm missing out on, but I'll be able to look that up and maybe talk about it again down the road. Anyways, just enjoy the coffee on the terrace here, which I rarely do, and I'll continue my walk. Shaker's Cuisine and Mixology. I wonder if it's like a place you could test out drinks or concoct your own and hope it's not completely rancid. Yeah, got me my Americano. I'm just walking with it. I'm just enjoying the sights and sound of Saint Laurent once again. It's a beautiful sight to see all the terraces out once more and seeing what's around and kind of scout for future places to maybe check out down the road. That's the one thing I gotta lament is that there's a lot of good places, but there's also not enough time to check everything out. Actually, you probably know this one pretty well if you're around, okay, you probably can't see it because the umbrella blocked it, but if you're around downtown, like close to Concordia, or even on the West Island, or here, you know McKibben's Irish Pub, highly recommended, and it's also well known because of the Rim Reaper Challenge. That is for some chicken wings that are in a really hot batter that, you know, you can try a few of them to test out, but the thing you would do is you take part in a competition to eat the whole plate, like a full dozen wings in one sitting. It's apparently not a pretty sight. I have a friend of mine who actually did it twice in his lifetime, and both times his digestive system did not forgive him for that. It took about a week to recover from it. And that's as much as I'm going to say without getting too detailed. I do recall that I saw in 2017 at the Bishop one, the one near Concordia. Ooh, here comes the wind again. We did see a group of people trying the wings, took one bite out of it, and then next thing I know, they're taking a dive for the milk that was right beside them. It's like one bite and they couldn't handle it. That's how bad it is. Doesn't make me want to try it out. I don't like to torture myself. Not in that way. Theme socks. Neat, but I don't know if I want to have Edward Scissorhands draped around my ankles. That would be a weird idea. Yep, some things are never going to change. To this day and age, there's always a lineup outside of Schwartz's Smoked Meat Place. People really want to get it, and it is kind of unique, I have to say. And I probably mentioned this on my last walk along Saint Laurent when I did that video in January, but essentially, it doesn't taste like a cold cut meat. It's a bit like having a brisket, like you take some beef, and then, I don't know, it just has a different texture, which makes it unique. I don't think, despite what they claim, it's not because of 80 years of grease in the wall. That's a marketing ploy. It doesn't really happen. And I'll make the joke again. If you got 80 years worth of grease in your wall, you should probably change your walls because you probably got mold growing on the other side. Well, made my way onto Mount Royal Avenue again, and I thought I'd turn right and go away from my usual route of going up to Saint Laurent all the way to Beaubien or Jean Talon. Now, I didn't record this, but I did actually visit a couple of bars, like when I was dealing with stuff, and I actually had a weekend to myself to just decompress. Some of these are places I passed by countless times over the years, but I never actually stepped into them. And I figured, let's do a little pub crawl, get a pint at each one, and see what the character is like. And this is actually one of them that I tried out too, called Les Torchés. Pretty nice. I was able to get some of that Saint-Ambroise New England IPA. And in fact, I was sitting right here on the terrace at that time. Awesome stuff. But one thing that actually caught my eye is that it was one of the few places I saw Laurentide on tap. It might not sound like much to you, but it's like one of those cheap, skunky blonde beers like Molson X, Labatt 50, Labatt Blue Dry. You know, something for my dad's generation of beer. But the only place I've ever really seen it for sale, oddly enough, is at the SAQ. And then when I saw it here, I thought, wow, this is like a first for everything. I don't know, I just thought it was unique. It's like a little relic of the past that still lives on. Now, if I ever found Old Milwaukee on tap, I would probably get that. The Plan B bar. I think before you come up with a plan B for your bars, you should probably look at what plan A is. Because plan B means like, is it going to be your backup plan or your second idea? Not your first go-to area. Yeah, that was a bit of aged cheddar spewed. Several years later, and this thing is still run down. If you're wondering what I'm looking at here, this old location used to be La Boîte Noire, or the Black Box. If you're big into films, like you're a film buff, you like obscure things, world films, this is a place to go to pick up a lot of those things. But, you know, in the digital age, having a physical store for movies and stuff is not as sustainable as it used to be. Sad, but not much you can really do about it now. You know, I'm seeing a lot of poke bowl places that have been coming up a lot these days. Kind of like in the early 2000s when sushi shops have been almost on every street corner, just as much as a McDonald's or a Starbucks was around downtown at that time. Now, what is a poke bowl exactly? Well, it's a mixture of rice, vegetables, and then certain types of meat. I've seen it made with chicken, but big ones I remember trying lately, like the few times I had it was with salmon or tuna, but it's with raw tuna or salmon. Normally you would see those, or at least in my experience, I would see them in some sushi places, but actually it's a Hawaiian dish. It's because I guess if you're living in Hawaii, then you're using fresh catch, like fresh fish that you pick out, maybe some vegetables. The reason you'd find it in sushi places is because most of the time the ingredients are going to be very similar. Like you use sushi grade salmon for your sushi, or even for your poke bowl, so that's why they're pretty big around here. But and this is the nerd in me talking, I can't but feel like that when someone was coming up with the idea of Pokemon, that they probably were eating maybe a bowl of poke, and they thought, okay, poke bowl, we're gonna make it a Pokeball to catch them all. Maybe I'm wrong? Somebody want to help me out on that? Saint-Sacrement Tavern. I don't know, maybe that's one of the oh, I already know a couple of the sacraments. You got baptism, you got confirmation, you got the Eucharist / communion. I guess intoxication is the unofficial 8th sacrament that they don't tell you about. Yeah, I'm just making some stuff over here. It does make me remember about a bar that I visited in Quebec City many ages ago, and credit to Pascal from Total Crap for mentioning this to me. It was a place called Le Sacrilège or Saint Sacrilège. The thing about that one is that it had a really nice stone wall in the back terrace with a huge tree around there. So it's like your own personal private garden while you're having a pint. Loved it. I feel like I got to go back there because now that I know a lot more about beers and a place to go eat and drink, I'd be able to appreciate it a lot more. We'll see what happens. And rest assured, there will be a video for that when I do go back. Now, this is one of the other spots I hit up on that little run called Chez Baptiste. There seems to be a few locations out of, as far as I know. There's one I remembered on Masson Street, and there's this one on the Mount Royal, which I did stop off for a pint. Here I didn't actually have anything special because my original intention was to get a pint of Steam Whistle. It's an Ontario beer that I don't really see as often on tap. Even in stores sometimes it's hard for me to come by, and they're out of it, so I just took the house beer, which kind of tastes like a basic 50. Simple stuff, and it's perfect for when you're sitting on a terrace. And when I did that little run, I actually ended up here for supper, and they actually had some legendary beer on tap. Pizza Idyllic is a little chain I've seen numerous times around Montreal, but I never stepped into it until that day. Pretty good. Forget which one I had, but I feel like there was like some molasses on there with the prosciutto pizza that I had, but it was pretty tasty. And I actually had to send some text to a Nirvana fan because there was actually one vegetarian one that was called Teen Spirit. And I thought somebody was probably listening to Nevermind when they were coming up with names of the pizza. Funny. I'm now a little south of Mount Royal on De la Naudière, and I actually had to come here because of one particular reason. There's a place here called La Maison des Bières, or the House of Beers, which I've actually stopped by. I think it was around February. It's another one that has a really good selection of microbrews and plenty of stuff here that I have never seen on the South Shore in the shops around my neck of the woods. Definitely recommend it too, especially if you're looking for rarities. Now I keep making my way east. Now this was actually a place that I highlighted back on my original Mount Royal walk from the Plateau to Old Montreal, Les Enfants du Rock. It's a pretty neat spot, I have to say. As you could tell by the decor, there was a lot of rock-related things. There's even some board games you could play too, and some microbrews I haven't even seen available before. I did get a stout for myself when I was over here. And, you know, full disclosure, normally when I go for stuff on tap, it's rare that I go for a stout. Especially if I'm going for, especially not an imperial stout, because when I've seen the percentage on that, you're usually looking like a good 9 to 10% on those, so those could be a little bit strong. But this stout, I made an exception just because of the name of the brew. It was called Pretty Bastard. It's such a funny name that I felt there's no way I can't have a pint of this. Who's la poor dude? Yeah, I'm sure Matt Groening's rolling around right now in embarrassment. I'm not even going to begin what's wrong with that phrase. So I decided to take a little bit of a detour for myself. Instead of continuing along Mount Royal, I'm going up Papineau Avenue. So if I was actually going south here, I would be going back towards where I've done some of my previous walks along the Jacques-Cartier Bridge and Ontario Street. But this is one area that I haven't really covered as much, at least not in a couple of years. I can't really guarantee there's going to be too much interesting stuff, but we'll see where we go from there. Okay, this place is called La Licorne and Bar Danse Entre Nous, or Dance Bar Among Us. I'm going to let you try to use your imagination on what that could mean. Actually, the thing that caught my attention first was La Licorne. I was thinking, if I'm not getting my beer served by a unicorn that's like strolling around, I want my money back, damn it. So far, I've gotten to St. Joseph Blvd, and I haven't really come across anything really interesting, honestly. But I did get a little bit of a whiff of a Montreal home from out here. In case you're wondering what I'm talking about, it's simple. If you've lived around here, it could be either a combination of the concrete that they used from back then or the wood from when it was constructed. Because let's face it, a lot of these houses were built in the early part of the 20th century, so you may have some 100-year-old buildings, but there is an odor that comes from them because of the building type. It just brings me back to the memories of going to visit my grandmother in Rosemount, because her house had the exact same kind of scent in it too. I don't know. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about if you've lived around here. The Ancient and Mystic Order of the Pink Cross. I don't know if it's a religion or if it's supposed to be something else. Feels like maybe something out of maybe a Final Fantasy game. Well, I'm now crossing the street along Masson Street, one area that I probably showcased a lot in my last couple of videos, and I'll probably showcase again down the road, but right now I'm continuing a bit north because I just recall there's a bar that I wanted to check out back in December when I was doing a walk around Rosemount Blvd. I want to see if it's still open or make sure it's not one of those places that opens at 5 p.m. because I know I'm going to be mad about that. So right there is someplace that's called Career Street. What is that supposed to mean? You walk down that street and you're going to find a career like that? If only life was so easy and you didn't need a university degree just to get a basic job. But that's a soapbox I don't want to get into these days. Now, I'm getting back around familiar territory because my December walk I did on Boxing Day brought me to Rosemount Blvd, and I'm now around there. And what's this? Royal Ave, some kind of a urban brewery. I wonder if it's supposed to be like a micro pub that I could check out one of these days. But that's not what I'm here for. I want to see if the one that I saw last time is still open, and I think I'm getting close.
Give me a ticket for an aeroplane. Ain't got time to take a fast train. Lonely days are gone, I'm a-going home. My baby just wrote me a letter. I don't care how much money I gotta spend. Got to get back to my baby again. Lonely days are gone, I'm a-going home. My baby just wrote me a letter. When she wrote me a letter, said she couldn't live without me no more. Listen, mister, can't you see I got to get back to my baby once more.
That was a bust. This is a Brasserie Barbière that I remembered seeing on my last walk. I thought I wanted to come back to, but the reality is that it seemed like it's closed or locked or something. I did see a sign saying it was open for Uber Eats drivers, but yeah, that didn't really work out. So I'm just gonna make my way somewhere else and figure things out from there.
I'm the type of guy who will never settle down. Where pretty girls are, well, you know that I'm around. I kiss them and I love them, cause to me they're all the same. I hug them and I squeeze them, they don't even know my name. They call me the Wanderer, yeah, the Wanderer. I roam around. Oh, well, there's Flo on my left arm and there's Mary on my right. And Janie is the girl, well, that I'll be with tonight. And when she asks me which one I love the best, I'll tear over my...
Okay, so I decided to go back to La Brase, which, if you remember one of my older videos around Good Friday, I did stick around here for a cafe, but one thing I did remember seeing too is that they do have some Boreal beers on tap, and there's no way that I couldn't enjoy it, especially with the terraces set up right now, and lo and behold, Boreal IPA de Nord-Est it is. That's what I'm going to be enjoying. And just in case you don't remember, it's a pretty unique thing that I saw here. It's like a cafe slash bar slash laundromat slash whatever here, which, you know, if you're like me from the South Shore, these things are almost unheard of. Like the combination, you think it wouldn't go together, but it does have a nice vibe. And there's a little bit of a library and some board games that you can take out to play and just enjoy yourself with. Fun stuff. And then once you're done, you just go across the street to Parc Molson. You'll be able to stick around, have a picnic. There might even be some musicians that play here from what I've heard. And actually, funny enough, thinking back to when I was doing some of these walks, I'm really close to the old location of Momo 3, which a lot of people wouldn't mean much to, but like I said in my old Rosemount Wander video, that, when I was a kid, we used to go there for a short time to get haircuts, just because it was $5 a cut for kids. We ended up stopping to go because, well, it didn't seem nice to be getting smoke blown in our faces while we're getting our hairs cut. It's not exactly worthwhile. Yeah, and it's funny too, like go about smoking in faces. It's hard to believe that years ago you would have been able to have a smoking or a non-smoking section in restaurants and cafes, and never mind, people would be smoking indoors everywhere. Even the concept of smoking on a terrace is unheard of here. And then it was like a real shock if I'm sitting in Milan outdoors and I'm seeing someone just light up a cigarette on their table. What can you do? Times change, I guess, for good, for bad, for weird. It is what it is. I'm just going to be doing the one round here, and then I'm going to continue my wander somewhere else. Well, that was a nice brew to start off my evening activities, and highly recommended. La Brase, pretty good place if you want to have a nice latte, brew, or whatever else while you're doing your laundry. So now I've decided to continue my way eastward, and I just passed by 10th Avenue, which I've talked about before in my Rosemount vlog. That's around where I was living when I was first born, and where my grandmother had lived at the time. It gives me warm, fuzzy feelings whenever I pass by there. I love it. And funny enough to see too that the Donald Duck Tavern again, a year after I've done that video, it's still standing, and I really don't see it going anywhere. It's abandoned, but I guess I'm gonna keep it for various reasons. Oh, and while I'm over here, there is one place I could suggest to, Le Grand Lionel, I believe. I passed by here before, and I've seen it countless times, but back in May when I needed to just unwind a little bit, I ended up coming over here to have a pint and something to eat. If you're gonna be getting anything to eat over there, I would suggest getting the chorizo quesadillas. You got your salty big, you got your mass amount of cheese in there too, because I am a cheddar factory, and if I'm not having enough cheese, then, well, I forget what the joke was, but it's recommended. And the majority of the brews that they got are going to be variations of Unibrew, which is made down in Chambly, so really nice stuff. Also, they got Le Fins du Monde on tap too. That's actually one of those beers that's world renowned. You go anywhere in the world, even in the US, and somehow if you're thinking imports from Quebec, Le Fins du Monde is one of them. Just don't abuse it, because it's a 9%er. Fun stuff. So I'm just going to be making my way down, and because I am in Rosemont after all, I think I want to hit up one of my favorite spots around here, La Succursale. In terms of what brew I'm going to be doing and what meal, that you're going to have to wait and see. Precious at Jatinsky's Deli. Hang on a second. I gotta pay my respects to this place. Love the kielbasa, love everything I get over here, fond childhood memories, etc. Close to the family. Only downside is it's a bit past 4 o'clock, so it's already closed. On a Saturday, if you're ever gonna come here before 2 o'clock, because otherwise you're not gonna have any luck. And it's closed on Sunday and Monday. There, respect is paid. Turning down onto 12th Avenue. An oversized egg in the middle of the park. Does that mean that trouble is brewing? No. There's an egg, not Eggman. God. I think my editor is taking these Sonic the Hedgehog references a little too far. Now, what this thing is right now is just some, well, I guess I'll give you a better visual. Right here is just some kind of a display of an egg. Doesn't seem like much, but it's kind of big at Easter time because pisanki, or Ukrainian Easter eggs, are a pretty big thing whenever you're celebrating Easter, like Orthodox Easter. And the thing about that is that, I can't remember if I mentioned it back in my Rosemount video from a while back, but I'll risk it and do it again. If you're gonna be making those kind of Easter eggs, the design part is really elaborate. Okay, here's the process that you do it. You take your egg and you cover it up with some wax. There's a little tool that you fill up with wax, melt it over a candle, and then you put it over the egg. And the idea with that is that you want to cover up any spots on the egg that you want to keep white. And then once you're done with that, you dip it into a light dye, most likely going to be yellow. And then when you take that out of the dye and you let it dry up, what you do is you cover all the parts you want to keep yellow, then put it back into a darker shade of dye, and keep repeating until you get to your darkest one. Most likely it's going to be a black dye. So the idea there is that you're going to add a little bit more wax here and there for the designs. And then when you're ready, once it's got the darkest one all set, then you just put your egg over a candle, or I think when we used to do them as kids, put them in the oven and they'll melt all the wax. So you'll get a pretty elaborate design. Because take a look at some of those online, they're really intricate. It could take maybe hours. I actually feel like you could probably spend a week doing those eggs. I used to make them. I don't have time for it now, but maybe one day if I do have time, I'll give it a shot, but it's definitely amazing. If anyone needs a hot water tank, there's one over here. It might need a bit of repairs, you might need to fix up some stuff in it, but hey, it's on the side of the road. It could save you like a good couple $100 if you gotta replace it. Maybe? Garieppe is still open, thankfully. My memory of that, my grandmother used to always walk down here from her place to go get cakes whenever we had a gathering, and most of the time it was a Black Forest cake. We used to have those a lot before we finally gave them up for a time. It's not something we really go for because I think we all got bored of it. So I just passed by Dandurand Street, and then the next street is going to be Masson to get to the Masson Promenade. So if you've been following me for a while, you probably know where I'm going to be going. Yep, I'm going to be visiting La Succursale. I love that spot, and I want to keep highlighting it as much as I can because, you know, good places with good beer, you can't really lose. But I do have a little plan in mind as well. Like I said, I want to come back to a really great spot that I've gone to countless times, but I want to try something different. I know I mentioned this kind of facet before, but I'm going to say it again. A lot of times you come to these microbrewers, you're able to get these little tasters of what kind of brews they got, just so you know if you like it or not before you get a pint. But there's actually another beauty to this too you can get. You get yourself a little taster's platter. So what this is that you can get around a good 5 ounces of 4 types of beers, just to see if you kind of enjoy one of them. And worst case, you try to say, I don't like it, and then you move on. So I did that to get an idea of some beers I wouldn't necessarily get as a brew, like as a full pint, but I wanted to give it a shot anyways. So let's do the rundown. First up is going to be Viens prendre une. Okay, that's a pun, isn't it? Saying, you know, Viens prendre une, or as they say in English, come get one. It's supposed to be a Vienna-style lager. But going by the way I see this, it kind of has a very caramel style look. Hard for me to tell completely, but I'm going to give this a taste test. Not bad at all. Actually, yeah, it does have a bit of a caramel taste. Slightly bitter, but it's a good one. This one I might have had too. Budweiser, it's a good 6.2%, which is kind of strong for white beers that I usually get from time to time. Yeah, I was chatting with a few people at the bar because they saw the camera and thought, hey, what's going on? The life of a vlogger. But Budweiser, this is a white style beer. And if you don't know what a white is, let me just explain. Most of your blondes are going to be made out of barleys/malts with a bit of yeast, water, and hops. The hops is always what gives it the bitter taste, but usually with a wheat beer, white beer is, okay, I gave a spoiler. They use wheat in a white beer. And depending on your taste, like a Hoegaarden or a Belgian Moon, they're going to be using some coriander and some orange. So it gives it a different flavor as well. Okay, this one does have strength, so it does kind of remind me of Belgian Moon. You can really taste the orange in this one. Then next what I have is the Colonel. It's called a Kentucky Common on this thing, which I'm not familiar with. It almost does feel like it's a pale ale based on the color. Pale ales tend to be a little bit more amberish, sometimes have a bit more caramel as well. And luckily it's only 5.1%, so it's not too strong. Oh yes, this one you can definitely taste the caramel in there, no question about it. And the last one is going to be, sorry, someone was kind of waving hello. Last one I'm going to be doing here is the La Succursale, which is like a bitter English. It's not like going to St. Buck and you order a sour Jesus and you can make the joke, well, if you're nailed to a cross, you'd be bitter too. I don't usually get these bitter beers because I'm not as big on them. I just figured for the purposes of this video, I'd be able to give it a shot. Okay, it's slightly bitter, but it's not so bitter that it's overpoweringly bitter. So I could definitely say it's worth trying out because I've had some bitter beers. Actually, funny enough, makes me think back to Brutopia, where there was one that was called Bonjour High. They might still have on tap. It's essentially like a bitter red ale too, but it's Bonjour High with high spelled H-I-G-H instead of high like a hello. It's essentially a beer that has hemp in it, so yeah, I guess getting high off of a beer, how else can that happen? That one was bitter, a little overpoweringly so. This one's mild. So nice, awesome, all-around beer. I'm gonna probably move on to something else too. Maybe a standard pint of my Angus IPA because they do have it on tap. And I guess if you want a reminder too, it's an Angus IPA, but that's because just a little north of here is the old Angus Yard, when Canadian Pacific Railroad had more of a presence around here. And I know about it because my dad was a yardman, so I kind of heard stories about it. And I did do a walk ages ago around that neighborhood where it showed off the facades. Basically, they preserved the facades of all the buildings when it was a railroad track, but they changed it up to some stores, some restaurants, and other interesting stuff. So yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. All this to say, pretty solid run for a Saturday, and we'll see where we go from here. So that was a nice platter to try out. Like I said, I highlight that countless times in my videos that you can get these taster platters whenever you go to a microbrewery, but you know what? I figured it was the perfect time to do it, especially since there was a few of those I would never get as a pint on my own. And now, if you're to ask what my favorite one was, I would say it's the Budweiser, because I'm kind of familiar with that one, and it wasn't too caramelized when you had it tasted. But now I had to go on to supper, and I'm going for a full pint of something else, and this one is a classic. So because I was talking about the Angus IPA, I figured I'd go for that today to go along with my meal. And I did have a bottle of this I shared with my buddies a little while back, and one thing that they pointed out was it was like a combination of an amber and an IPA, because it had a hoppy taste, but it was also a little bit caramelized too. So it's like a blend of two different types of beers all in one, which gives it a little unique flavor. Of course, one thing for sure is that this is not one that you want to abuse, because the Angus IPA, yeah, it's 7%, so don't go and do 5 pints of this because you're going to regret it. Believe me. So that was a pretty good run. Some good brews at both La Succursale and La Brase, and a nice hot dog with some chips and coleslaw over at La Succursale for a supper. So one thing that I find pretty unique about La Succursale is that they would actually serve your coleslaw heated in a glass bowl, which is almost unheard of, because when I think coleslaw, I think the cold stuff that you get at St. Hubert and etc. Not bad. So I took some time to have a coffee and then just walk around, and I'm back on the Mount Royal Avenue ready to get on home. So everyone, hope you enjoyed this edition of the Water and Yuki Cheese Cafe, and if you like what you see, just be sure to hit that subscribe button below and give me a thumbs up if you enjoy my antics. And if you have a good idea for an episode later on, like, you know, a wander around town, a recipe, a project, whatever, I'll try to cover it. Till then, see you next time. There used to be a market around here, but now it's like a construction zone. I'm telling you, Montreal construction is such an infestation. It never ends.